This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
Next on the 5 o'clock report.
And this war that is risking to get completely out of control.
Why are we risking our blood and treasure?
Who knows better about surprise than Japan?
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
The Middle East war burning hot. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Webster. Day 20 of the multinational conflict, and the prime targets seem to be oil and gas facilities right now. NBC's Richard Engel reports Israel attacked the southern Pars natural gas refinery on Iran's coast.
That was a major escalation. The entire Pars field holds the largest natural gas reserves in the world. Both Iran and Qatar across the Gulf draw gas from the field.
President Trump says if Iran hits Qatar again, the U.S. will decimate Iran's South Pars natural gas facility. The head of the United Nations is getting worried.
The United States and to Israel. It's high time to end this war that is risking to get completely out of control.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth says Iran's been building up the ability to wage war for decades.
Iran has funneled decades of state resources, not to their people, but into missiles and drones and proxies and buried facilities.
The cost of the war to the U.S. is adding up, with the Pentagon looking for an additional $200 billion in congressional funding. Not sitting well with some, including Connecticut Democrat Jim Himes.
Why did we and are we risking our blood and treasure on a deeply risky venture, one that the President of the United States and the Director of National Intelligence have spent years telling us is a terrible idea?
President Trump drew some groans today while hosting Japan's prime minister at the White House. Trump was asked by a Japanese reporter why he didn't inform U.S. allies like Japan about the strikes against Iran in advance. Trump's answer?
Who knows better about surprise than Japan? Okay? Why didn't you tell me about Pearl Harbor? Okay?
Japan's PM did not respond to Trump's remark. To Capitol Hill next.
On this vote, the yeas are 8, the nays are 7, and the motion to report the nominee is agreed to.
The nominee is Senator Markwayne Mullin, now a full Senate vote away from confirmation as head of DHS after the Senate Homeland Security Committee advanced his nomination on an 8-7 vote today. NBC's Kelly O'Donnell says during yesterday's hearing, Mullin tried to distance himself from the policies of former Secretary Kristi Noem.
Mullin said he would not close FEMA.
I think it needs to be restructured, not eliminated.
And pledged to end a Noem policy that required her signature for dispersing certain disaster relief funds that critics say caused delays.
Mullin only needs a simple majority to win final confirmation. The sex assault allegations involving Cesar Chavez have cities and states across the country distancing themselves from his name now. A bombshell New York Times report says the late civil rights icon and leader of the United Farm Workers Union sexually assaulted several women decades ago and that it was hushed up. It's looking more and more likely that the legal battle over placing the 10 Commandments in public schools is headed to the highest court in the land. Lawsuits in Texas and Louisiana are pending, and this week a federal judge blocked a similar law in Arkansas.
They usually take up a case when the lower courts of appeals are divided. It's almost virtual certainty this case gets to the Supreme Court in the next year or so. But realistically, I'd say, right now in March of 26, maybe by 27, it gets to the Supreme Court.
Professor Josh Blackman at the South Texas College of Law, who says the different rulings at different judicial levels make the highest court a likely destination now. Could it be history in the making? On the opening day of the NCAA March Madness tournament, 16-seed Siena University, just north of Albany, leads top-seeded Duke University 43-32. And there's already been one pretty big upset.
We're down to 1.8, so you're going to have to hustle. Here comes the long ball. But it is intercepted. And High Point, the Panthers, the 12 seed, continue on as they upset the Wisconsin Badgers.
A call on TBS this afternoon. The nationwide Screen Fast 2026 kicks off this Sunday, led by Focus on the Family's Plugged In team. It's 7 days with no screens. That's no cell phone, no TV, no tablet, no electronics, nothing that runs on a battery or requires an outlet. Plugged In director Paul Assay.
Yeah, there's some pain involved, but this is one of those things where you give it up, but you end up getting so much more in return. When I've done it in the past, it really it does remind me what's truly important in my life.
Essay says studies show teens and adults spend an average of 7 hours a day now on their phones.
Encourage yourself to do fun things to fill that time. Lean into some of the creative activities that you've never had time to do before. Cook, write, paint, take a hike. When you're taking away the screens that fill up so many hours of our lives, fill that with something else.
Plugged In has put together a guide to make the screen fast simple. You can find it at pluggedin.com. And from underground to underwear. Howe Caverns, you might know it. It's a popular tourist spot in Schoharie County, New York, and it's gained extra notoriety thanks to some mysterious underwear. It all started last month when a large tour group went through and someone left a G-string behind the main lodge. Cavern employees made a comical online post about that, and somehow that morphed into requests for a line of Howe Caverns-themed undies. Well, the PR team knew they had something going here. They quickly designed a line of Caverns-themed underwear and T-shirts, the first run of which already has sold out. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, a recap of our top regional stories and highlights from today's Faith Under Fire. Now checking the stories making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. New York is launching a first-in-the-nation pilot program for firearm risk screenings in hospitals. Family Life's Sarah Harnish explains.
Governor Kathy Hochul today introduced a $1.5 million program to screen for firearm risk before it occurs, not in schools or at events, but in hospital emergency departments. It's being tested in 3 cities, Buffalo, Rochester, and the Bronx. The program gives healthcare providers tools to assess risk and connect patients that are 12 and older to resources like firearm storage to prevent shooting injuries. Sarah Harnish, Family Life News.
Thank you, Sarah. Next, a disturbing story out of Pennsylvania. Altoona police have launched an investigation after reports of someone intentionally poisoning animals by tossing toxin-soaked items into the yards of homes in the Fairview area of Altoona. Tammy Perkins says her dog Winnie tested positive for antifreeze poisoning there and is receiving IV care at a local animal hospital. Another pet died from consuming poisoned items. Authorities are asking anyone with security cameras on 25th Avenue in Altoona to check them. New York Congressman Nick Langworthy is sponsoring legislation to pay TSA workers amid the ongoing partial government shutdown. Right now, they're not collecting a paycheck, and many are, as a result, not showing up at work, and that's led to long lines at airports.
By making this bill law, we will send a huge message to the men and women of the TSA that we actually value and respect their service, that we won't treat their lives as political pawns in a game.
Democrats are refusing to fund the Department of Homeland Security because of ICE immigration enforcement tactics. Spring officially here at 10:46 tomorrow morning. Many towns are breathing a sigh of relief. The extra cold winter made extra ice, but the slow melt hasn't led to serious ice jams and flooding on Lake Erie. Buffalo uses an ice boom to guide the ice where they want it to go so it doesn't cause ice jams.
I think the ice boom held up pretty well this year. Not unusual for some pontoons to break free. There have been some floating downriver, and we appreciate the folks who have called in and identified where they are, and we've been scooping them up the last couple of days. But we don't see any cable breaks or breached spans.
The Power Authority's Director of Community Affairs, Lou Painesso, speaking with WBEN, he says even though we logged a bitterly cold winter, last year's ice melt was far worse.
Well, last year was probably one of the worst, if not the worst, weather conditions that caused the most damage to the boom. But this year we had a nice stable ice cover, and the boom was able to, based on all the repairs that we did last year, hold up much better this year than the year before.
Last week's warmth erased a lot of ice cover on Lake Erie, but there's still more than 250 square miles of it out there in the water. More than 20 vehicles broken into early Wednesday morning in Brighton, New York by smash-and-grab robbers. Sergeant Brad Clouston says he expects that number of claims to rise, too.
People are just breaking windows out and going into cars, rummaging through the glove boxes and looking for things to take.
Erica Barnabas, a mother of 3, told Wham News her minivan's been broken into more than once.
I'm not going to leave my wallet in the car because, something might happen to it.
But she tells the robbers while they're at it, could you please detail her van?
But as far as like the old juice boxes and the candy, knock yourself out.
Police are asking residents in Brighton to be proactive. Watch for slow drivers in the neighborhoods, people walking through parking lots and looking into different cars, and report them. So far, though, no arrests in those Brighton smash and grabs. Up next for you, we have highlights from today's Faith Under Fire.
This is Faith Under Fire. We take you straight to the front lines of religious battlegrounds. I'm your host, Sarah Harnish. With me, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel, Matt Stafer. Thank you for hopping on this week, because what a week it has been for you. You presented the oral arguments to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in the case Zinsky versus Liberty University. Tell me more about that case.
Yeah, this is a case that Zinsky intentionally set up Liberty University, taking female hormones for at least 4 months before applying to Liberty. On the application, he was presented with the very specific doctrinal statement that says God created us in his image, male and female, and that to identify as anything other than the sex God created you at birth is a sin. He ultimately had a plan to keep this quiet for the 90 days, and then after the 90-day probation to reveal this to Liberty. So after the 90 days, Zinsky sent an email to Liberty HR saying that Zinsky had been taking hormones for months and was having observable outward changes and wanted to let Liberty know before those became even more apparent. Liberty had no choice but to maintain faithfulness to its doctrinal position and terminate him. Zinsky then filed suit against Liberty. So the real issue, I think, here is if Liberty has to set aside its doctrinal statement for thousands of different theological versions of its employees, then Liberty has no doctrinal statement. If the ACLU were to win, that means not only Liberty University, but other religious employers would have no ability to hire and maintain employment of employees consistent with their theological and doctrinal beliefs. That would mean that religious employers have literally no religious freedom whatsoever, and that cannot be the law. That's why this case is so critically important.
I can't even imagine the implications of a decision against Liberty in a case like this. I mean, not just LGBTQ+, but what if someone walked in and was pro-abortion and wanted to work for a ministry?
It's far-reaching. So, for example, if you have a crisis pregnancy center and someone begins working there, and after the 90-day probation, they come out and say, well, you know what, I am pro-abortion. Would that crisis pregnancy center then be forced to continue to have someone who's actually speaking with, counseling, greeting people that are coming to their place that's actually pro-abortion? That's the absurd situation. Now they broadcast that they are an open violation, open rebellion of your doctrinal position. That would make the workplace a place of chaos. Take this as an example. Say mother and father, they want to send their child to Liberty University, and they look at the doctrinal statement and they agree with it. I want to send my daughter, my son to that university that has these specific Christian values. But then when they actually come to campus and they see their employees are running around with the LGBTQ pride flag, they've got pro-abortion on their T-shirts. That would be a hypocritical situation. I'm not going to send my kid here. What this means is that you can have your faith in print, but you can't actually exercise it. It means that people of faith can actually live out their faith in the public sector, in the workplace, in the school environment, in the religious mission and message that you are called to advance. And if we don't have that freedom, which is the fundamental freedom that birthed America 250 years ago, then we have no freedom at all. Religious freedom is the first of our freedoms in the first 10 amendments. And if we don't have that freedom, no other freedoms really matter.
Learn more at lc.org.
Thank you, Sarah. Highlights from today's Faith Under Fire. You can hear the entire feature and all of our Family Life original news features at Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and FamilyLife.org. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
What if God's provision shows up at the end of a line you've already cast? Hi, I'm Rob West with your Faith and Finance Minute. In Matthew 17, Peter is confronted about the temple tax. Jesus doesn't dismiss the obligation or argue his exemption. Instead, he sends Peter back to work to go fishing. And in the mouth of the first fish is a coin, precisely enough to pay the tax. It's a miracle, but not a shortcut. God doesn't bypass responsibility. He meets it. This story reminds us that faithful stewardship often looks ordinary. God may not remove the bill or reroute the obligation, but he can provide right in the work he's already placed in our hands. When we remain faithful in our responsibilities, we can trust that God knows exactly where provision will surface and when. Connect with a certified Kingdom advisor who's been trained to deliver financial advice that aligns with your Christian values by visiting our website, faithfi.com.
Thank you very much, Rob. And finally, at 5, what would you do if you caught a porch pirate in the act of trying to steal your stuff?
What you doing? Put it back! Put it back!
A doorbell camera recorded South Philadelphia resident Bernadette Williams telling the would-be pirate to stop, which she did. But that's not all Bernadette had to say.
You better than that. Get some help. You better than that. I love you. God loves you.
God loves you. She followed those forgiving words with some action, telling WFIL she gave the contrite would-be thief the only $7 she had on her.
All the money that basically had in my pocket, I offered it to her, and she accepted. I believe she started realizing what she did. She started realizing I am somebody. She started realizing that there is somebody out here that cares. I hope that was the message that she received.
Williams says she hopes that message was also received by others.
Let's hope that Philadelphians would say we can make our community better.
Some sisterly love in Philadelphia. And that's the world we live in for Thursday, March 19th, 2026. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.